Spartan Transportation and Spartan Logistic Management is your one source for all your shipping needs. 53-foot dry van shipments, auto transport shipments, full-service in-house brokerage, drop lot facilities, just-in-time deliveries to all auto manufacturers, facilities in St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, and Indianapolis, Indiana. Spartan Logistics LLC, proud sponsor of the IROC series, Kyle Steffens UMP Modified and Silver Crown Driver, and Gordy Gundaker, World of Outlaws Late Model. Visit us at spartan-logistics.net or find us on Facebook.
It's almost time for the playoffs, and we have a fantastic venue to host the race that defines who makes it. Who will get into that top 15 for our playoffs phase of the season? We can't wait to bring you slipstream battles from the high banks of Daytona to end our regular season in the IROC Challenge Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Reese Gardner, and with me in the booth is Chris Phoebe. Behind the scenes is our director, Joe Peak, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The track that hosts Round 10 barely needs any introduction, but let's refresh our memories with the track guide.
Welcome to Daytona International Speedway. This track began life after Bill France Sr. realized the Daytona Beach road course had outgrown itself. With ambitious plans and the blessing of the city officials, he built what would become the very first superspeedway in NASCAR history. At 2.5 miles and with 31 degrees of banking, stock cars easily reach speeds of around 200 miles per hour. Pretty much every car can take the course flat out. This makes for one of the most unique styles of racing motorsports has ever seen. The slipstream allows drivers to stay with one another so easily that it becomes less about the speeds each driver can reach and more about the strategy of racing in a pack. Bump drafting is a technique in which the car behind actually pushes the car in front so that both are able to reach higher speeds. And side drafting is another in which the drivers use the air off the sides of their cars to slow their opponents down. Staying out of trouble is always a difficult aspect of superspeedway racing, and it's not uncommon to see drivers intentionally move to the back of the pack to avoid the chaos. In fact, the high speeds make large wrecks so hard to avoid that the term "the big one" has become commonplace to refer to the almost inevitable multi-car pileups the circuit is known for. Also, entering pit lane is its own skill, which requires practice in order to slow the car up as quickly and safely as possible. Keeping the car clean and in contention is the main goal for much of the event. Then the final few laps, it's a race to the line, with any alliances usually dissolving and the driver's urge to win taking over. With it being home to one of the world's most famous races, the Daytona 500, fans from around the globe flock to this landmark circuit. Just like the cars on it, the Daytona International Speedway shows no signs of slowing down.
Well, Chris, this is a track that we always enjoy going to, a simply magnificent venue here at Daytona for round 10. There's plenty of history baked into the tarmac of this place, and we always know what to expect from it, which is always great.
That is for sure, and really the best track to use to end the regular season before the playoffs. Because at Daytona, really anything can happen. It's a wide open race here where just about anybody could have a chance. Obviously, the slipstream is going to be the biggest player here. Drafting will be at a premium, and there are a lot of drivers in this field that are very good at it. If it's any repeat of earlier in the season, look for the McCanns to be up front early on. But absolutely anything can happen there when we get to that last stage.
Absolutely. This is going to be an incredible race in an incredible series that is supported by and supports various great organizations. And we're going to take a moment to thank them right now. First off, Zoe's Place. The mission of Zoe's Place Child Advocacy Center is to minimize trauma to child victims of sexual abuse and neglect by providing a centralized, safe, and child-friendly facility from which a multidisciplinary team conducts investigations and intervention activities. Their goals are to reduce trauma, seek justice, and foster hope and healing for children and their non-offending caregivers. We'd also like to give a shout out to R&R Racewear, your source for all your custom racewear apparel needs and home to iRacing apparel. Check it out today at r-rracewear.com. Do you have questions about parenting or non-toxic living? Visit evidencebasedmummy.com, where Dr. Samantha Radford combines science and wellness to help parents and kids thrive. The series is also proud to celebrate the Lucky Finn Project, who has created a nationwide support network for parents of kids with limb differences and provides limb difference education and awareness. Find out more info about it at luckyfinnproject.org. We'd also like to give a shout out to Loud Pedal TV and, of course, 5-Star Graphics. Let's move into the championship, Chris. Now, it's going to be the top 15 in points that get through to the playoffs. And I've got to say, this championship top 10 looking as fun as ever. Aaron Smith still in the lead. But not by much. Brian McCann with a really good run of races recently.
Yeah, Aaron Smith and Brian McCann both have been really stellar this season. It's almost going to be a heartbreak for them when things reset for the playoffs. But nonetheless, I mean, really all these drivers have shown flashes of brilliance throughout the season, and I think it's going to be fun when we get to playoff time.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, the big battles in the playoff points are between the likes of Donnie Lyons, Brandon Leclerc, Hunter Clark, Jesse King, all of those drivers. That's going to be where things get interesting, and we will have to define where drivers end up finishing in this series. So, now we'll think about our race details, what's going to be happening here on track at Daytona. It is going to be a 100-lap race here for the 10th round of the championship with fixed setups, of course. There's no spare car, so you got to be careful to avoid damage. You get 4 tyre sets in total over the course of that 100 laps, and there will be 3 green-white checkered attempts at the end of this one. We used quite a few of them at Martinsville last round. Chris, I think there's a bit less danger of that here at Daytona.
Well, I sure hope so. Be nice to see these guys get some green flag racing under their belt. And really, they are absolutely stellar at these super speedways. So I think we'll be in pretty good shape here today.
Think so. Here is Brandon Leclerc as he's out on his qualifying lap. This is going to be a very important race for him. We'll see how he does on his way down the start-finish stretch and on his way towards turn 1. Of course, there's a bit of a strategy to qualifying here at Daytona. From what I've seen, Chris, drivers like to run the high line on their out lap and first lap and then go down low for their second lap, because it's all about momentum. It's all about building up as much speed as possible, and running the high line allows you to do that.
Exactly. And for the other aspect, though, the inside of the track is the shortest distance around. So you'll see drivers during qualifying running down there just to make sure they shorten the lap as much as possible and get the best time once they've got the engine up to full song.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, across the line, Brandon comes, and he sets the quickest time so far. In fact, the first driver to set a time. Second, of course, Brian McCann. Oh, the gaps are very close here. Only 0.07 of a second there between Leclerc and McCann, who won the last round at Martinsville last Thursday. The times continue to flow in. Kevin McCann now currently the fastest driver, and he's run a time pretty much exactly the same as his brother. Well, that's certainly keeping it in the family, isn't it? Neil Quick to third. Leclerc remains in fourth.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a genetic aspect to lap time.
Yeah, apparently they share something, do the McCanns. Neil Quick on his second hot lap here, and this is going to be a tough one for him. He certainly had some flashes of a really good race at the beginning at Martinsville, but wasn't quite able to keep himself there in the midst of that top 3. See what he can do to go faster than a 50.62 as Kevin McCann goes faster still, and then David Brown goes to P1, 50.5, and it's another 50.5 from Neil Quick. That's good enough for second spot, and that is 0.04 of a second off. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's insane how close all these times are. And Aaron Smith now goes to the top of the charts of 50.5.
Well, no surprise to see that Aaron Smith is the one right up the top of the standings and trying his best to get it done out there. Brandon Method, what can he do? This has always been an interesting driver to watch. Flat out through these corners, it sometimes feels as though, you know, there's not much to Daytona. When you're going around it, it's just flat to the floor the whole way around in qualifying trim, but there really is so much more to it than that. You've got to be careful to drive the track properly. You've got to make sure not to dip your wheels below the yellow lines. You don't want to unsettle the car or get an off track or anything like that. There's so much that you have to go through here to do properly in qualifying at Daytona.
Yeah, Daytona, especially during qualifying, is really like a false sense of security. You think it's just easy, hold the wheel and don't mess up, but man, there's so many things that go into a lap here that could really come up and bite you.
Yeah, true. What can Method do then as he comes up to the end of his lap? 50.6, the fastest time he has. It is a 50.50 that Aaron Smith has run, but he's not going to make it to the line in time. That is a shame there for Method. Just started his laps a little bit too late. Well, here we go then. Time to get things started for the warm-up session. We'll go through the grid when we jump into the race session. And now it's an extra couple of minutes for the drivers to get themselves prepared as the sun dips further and further below the horizon. It's gone just past 8 p.m. in sim time. So, Chris, it looks like we could be racing into the night.
And that'll be doing wonders for the track temperature. You can see it's already pretty cold for Daytona race, 76 degrees track temperature. So that is pretty low for Daytona.
Yeah, it certainly is. Of course, Daytona in the middle of Florida, pretty much, but very close to the coast, so it does get those sea breezes as well. So much to consider here for the race at Daytona. Not only do we have end-of-line penalties that are automatically applied for winner of the previous race and championship leader going to end-of-line for the start of the final stage, we do have stages as well, and they will happen at around 40% and around 75% race distance. So 100 laps at Daytona, that's a nice round number, pretty easy to work out when the stages will be ending there, lap 40 and lap 75. So we'll keep an eye out for that, Chris.
Boy, they really made it easy on us with the math this week.
That they did. And I think tires, what would tires be like at a track like this? Because we've seen quite a few races this season where tires have been the defining factor, and drivers have, you know, done these mammoth runs on really old tires just to try and keep track position. I'm not too sure how it would work here at Daytona, because you'd think that the track being flat out the whole way around and being very gentle through its turns, it would be easy on the tires, but it's not as simple as that, Chris.
No, I'd expect to see maybe a share of 2 tire changes, but Daytona is deceptively difficult on tires. Not to say you can't make it work on limited tire stops, but it'll be definitely be a strategy play, and it's going to be a matter of weighing the pros and cons on this one, because there is a good chance that tires could play the factor. It just really depends on how the strategy, the cautions, and everything else falls here at Daytona. It's one of those things where the racing gods really have to smile on you.
Yeah, and they definitely have to be smiling on you when you're racing in a pack. We saw some of the drivers a little earlier just doing a bit of practice in some pack racing, because you do want to avoid the big one. It's going to be difficult, especially at the start of the race when everyone is packed together, to race cleanly and make sure that you don't make a mistake and do something like that. Mike Koch and Aaron Smith making a little bit of contact there, and Aaron almost getting slid up into the barrier. Thank goodness it is only the warm-up session there.
Yeah, it's pretty much the last chance to get away with driving like a maniac.
Yeah, pretty much. Once we get into the race session, it's going to be all taken care, all being as careful as possible. Jeff Napier, meanwhile, number 40 in one of the Spartan Transportation cars, running in time good enough for 5th in the warm-up, and that's not saying much because it's 5 seconds off. That's an outlap, I believe, and he will continue to make his way around there in the final few seconds of this warm-up session. I gotta say, there's plenty of things to consider coming into this race. We did mention the playoffs. You know, you factor all of that together, Chris. It's going to be quite interesting. This top 15 in the championship going into the playoffs, and Aaron Smith, of course, going to be starting from rear of grid. Brian McCann going to be starting rear of grid. They're going to be working their way up through this, aren't they?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a lot of trying to pass here. I mean, it's really a chess game when you think about it, the way these super speedway races work. I mean, and having to go to the back twice. I mean, they're going to have to roll that into their strategy. So expect to see all our drivers that are taking the end of line penalties to really have to think things out and be very deliberate in the way they move up through the field.
Well, let's take a look at this grid then. Aaron Smith running the fastest time in qualifying, just 1,000th of a second ahead of David Brown, and Brown will assume pole position on the outside, I believe, when Aaron Smith goes to the back of the field. Neil Quick and Jesse King, 3rd and 4th, with Kevin McCann and Mike Koch taking up the 3rd row. Tim Schofield and Kyle Pendergraft will start 7th and 8th, with James Kaufman and David Trumbley rounding out the top 10 fastest times.
All right, just outside of the top 10, it's going to be Brian McCann in 11th over Joshua Funkhauser. Cook Quick in the 7th row starts inside with Brian Kaufman outside of him. Then Brandon Leclerc 15th over Hunter Clark, and Brandon Mefford and Dakota Clark in row number 9. Closing out the top 20, it's going to be Jeff Napier and Brian Reek.
Brian Reek's going to be one of the drivers joining us on the Zoom feed tonight, and the last driver to set a time. Mike Harper, Chris Mefford are going to be on row 11 with Donnie Lyons and Matthew Kopp on the 12th row. Chris Wally and Jamie Abril start on row 14, and then we got Curtis Rogers, the sole car, on the 14th row. And we already have some drivers getting a bit of a slow getaway out of the pits, but there's plenty of time here to form up around Daytona. Because it's 2.5 miles long, it's only a single warm-up lap. There's Mike Koch in the 00, having a little bit of a pre-race brew, I believe. Yes, indeed, it is a brew. And thank goodness it's a nice, long, wide, straight track, because you can do stuff like that. Oh, fantastic. Just be careful not to hit too many bumps. There is Brian Reek as well in the number 11, having a couple of brews of his own. It's Daytona, baby. It's the done thing, Chris.
I mean, there's really no no drawback. If anything, it might make you race a little more confidently.
Indeed. Well, Brian McCann is all focus, isn't he? Starting out of 11th spot. And thanks for the thumbs up there, Brian. He'll be riding high off his excellent performance at Martinsville. Kevin McCann, his brother, also getting into the Daytona spirit. Here we go then. The field will be forming up momentarily with Kyle Pendergraft also there. And as we get the green flag, we are away with Mr. Pendergraft. And off the front row of the grid, things going well between Neil Quick and David Brown coming into turn 1. End-of-line penalties have been applied. Aaron Smith and Kevin and Brian McCann all down there at the rear of the field, and they're running 2 by 2 out of turn 2 as we go through. David Brown currently getting pushed a little bit by Jesse King on the outside row, the high line. We'll see what the high line can do around here once the race starts getting into the meat of things. Currently, the low line is where you want to be. That's where most of the rubber is. But as the race goes on, there'll be more rubber laid down on the high line, and we'll be able to see some proper attacks from drivers who decide to use the high part of the banking. Lap 1 complete, and it is David Brown who leads by 0.02 of a second.
One thing I did notice already, Reese, is you have drivers kind of snaking around that are a little further back in the procession. One thing you have to be cognizant of when you're racing in these packs like that is you have to give yourself room to breathe. And by that, I mean moving out of the draft to get a little fresh air in the induction of that car so that it keeps the engine temperature down to a reasonable rate. Because there's a good chance if you just stay locked in behind somebody for a long period of time, you're going to overheat that engine. And that's going to make for a rough night.
That it is. Reek is all concentration here. running in 19th and then 18th. He's picking up a bit of slipstream. He's lost a bit of time there in the top row, so he might be switching low at some point there. The car up ahead of him is Hunter Clark, who is right on the verge there of getting into the playoffs, and we're seeing that Reek is not having too much luck there, keeping the speed up in the high line. He might have to drop low at some point, maybe move in behind Aaron Smith, who's coming up on his left, and work himself out there. Neil Quick now up to speed and looking quick on the low line, with David Brown still getting the momentum off the banking. It's almost like a ramp, the top of the banking here at Daytona. If you're on the high line, of course you'll lose time through the turns, as you can see here, because it's the longer line around the racetrack. But once you get to the exit, Chris, that little bit of downhill running just gets you a tiny bit more momentum.
Yeah, it's one of the fun aspects of super speedway racing, is really picking your battle as far as where you want to line up. Being on the outside like that has its advantages and its disadvantages, but as far as my personal strategy goes, I always liked being on the outside, simply because, well, it's a little further to go when you're going to hit the wall, or a little less distance to go, I should say, before you hit the wall.
Indeed. Well, fastest lap from Aaron Smith. He's got the full draft train ahead of him, running 47-second lap times. The race has been very calm so far as we have entered our 5th lap. One thing that I always love to see in the IROC series is just how much care the drivers tend to take here on super speedways. You know, if you're familiar with super speedway racing and unofficial events here on the iRacing service, you often know that they are a bit of a wreck fest, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. All the drivers know each other, they know what the deal is, how to race super speedways, and things are looking nice and clean so far, as that is a great run there from the top row. Now, as we begin lap 6, Jesse King moves up into second. Now, will the top 2 guys in that top row think about moving eventually, or will they stay up there?
I'm actually kind of surprised to see Aaron Smith working his way up through the field like he is. Not because lack of skill by any means. Aaron Smith has proven all season long that he's one of the fastest drivers in this series, but if I were him at a super speedway, I might think about laying back a little bit and trying to avoid the quote-unquote big one that you see here from time to time. I think making it through that first stage that's 40 laps, it may not be a bad idea to just hang out and see how it plays out before moving up so aggressively. Obviously, Aaron disagrees with my strategy because he's doing the exact opposite, but that would be that's what I think would be the more wise move there.
Indeed. Well, it does seem that the low line has had a bit of a resurgence there. Neil Quick back into the lead, but then David Brown once again getting pushed along by Jesse King. Really working their way forward. We look back into midfield here, back at the number 41 of James Kaufman. From the perspective of Neil Quick, Kaufman's done pretty well in this opening stanza of the race, up 5 spots. It's up 8 spots each, 7 spots now for Cook Quick and Brandon Leclerc. So they've had a pretty good race so far.
You can see right there, looking back at Kaufman there, how difficult it really is to keep the car lined up here. I mean, you can see so much movement in that car going down the straightaway. I mean, he is really, once you get in the draft here, it's so difficult to keep that car pointed straight. There really is a lot of turbulence that you don't expect until you're really out there in the mix of things.
Yeah, you're traveling at such high speeds here that it's really difficult to keep a handle of that car when you're behind someone and dealing with all of the air coming off everyone else. We're almost a 10th race distance complete, and it seems that things are nice and calm so far. We've still got 2 lines going around the circuit. We haven't seen much of a split in the field yet. We would have to wait for a potential crash and a caution to see whether or not drivers decide to jump into the pits and try their best to take themselves onto a fresh set of tyres, but I still think it's too early for that at the moment. Remember, it's 4 tyre sets total for these races.
You know, Reese, I'm surprised that we don't hear more about physics teachers using racing as a teaching tool. You look at super speedway racing, and it is just a great demonstration of so many principles. You can see the momentum, the inertia, the transfer of energy when you bump draft the car in front of you and give them that little extra push. And right now we have the 7 of David Brown moving down to the bottom of the track and deciding to take the shorter distance. And of course, as soon as he does that, that allows Neil Quick to get a push. And he thinks about moving to the inside, but unfortunately that line was not quite clear, and now he's going to get
early for 3 wide, boys.
down the middle.
Goodness me. All right, so looks like Neil Quick has gotten a major disadvantage from that one. He is getting some side draft from the cars around him. You see Aaron Smith also getting behind Neil Quick there in the middle for a few seconds, but man, I still think, Chris, I'm sorry for talking over you, it's too early here to think about 3 wide. There's a little bit of contact between Neil Quick and James Kaufman side by side, and now Neil is going to try and get back down to the low line. Little bit of rear quarter contact there with David Brown, and they come together, the leaders come together, and we've got our first big one of the race. Oh, that is a shame. That is a huge shame there for the number 25.
Aaron Smith got absolutely walloped in that one too.
Yeah, that he did. Championship leader number 70 is down on the grass with heavy damage. And my goodness, some ridiculously heavy damage for many cars in that field. We'll have a look at the replay on that one. And that's interesting. Now, did the number 7 of David Brown get a tap from behind?
I'm going to be honest, on that first go through, I was watching Neil Quick so intently I didn't even look behind him.
Yeah, it looks like there was a little bit more to that incident than we thought, and you see Aaron Smith there completely missing a lot of body work. Dear, oh dear. I'm going back to check it on my end. It does. Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at Neil Quick, but I don't know. I think we'll see it here on the onboard. So keep an eye on the purple car, the purple and white machine on the right hand side. Oh, that's so hard to call.
Yeah, I can't say definitively that they got together, but definitely something upset the 7.
It could have been both. It could have been just, you know, both cars making contact with them at the same time. On board with Donnie Lyons, who had a front row seat to all of this, and you see cars going flying, and Donnie immediately on the brakes, trying his best to avoid. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an excellent incident avoidance there from Donnie Lyons. Came out of that with barely any damage at all, if anything. And the pits have come alive here. Plenty of drivers coming in to take damage repair. Of course, there are no fast repairs in this series, so you do have to get all of those repairs done manually. And pretty much everyone, except for the top 4, has stopped in their box. Hunter Clark did go through the pits in the number 54, but he didn't stop. Everyone else has stopped, and we've had David Brown in the pits now for about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Aaron Smith has emerged back onto the track, but we still have Kyle Pendergraft, David Trumbley, Dakota Clark, and David Brown stopped in the box taking repairs. Chris Wally has just emerged, our series admin, in the number 51, down in 21st, and I think he might have avoided most of it, but it looks like a bit of damage repair for the number 51 there as well.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Neil Quick get through this one in relatively okay shape. I mean, he definitely was not the one that forced it 3 wide, so I was glad to see that he was able to make it out in one piece for the most part. And I'm interested to see how this plays out, but man, it's got to be so frustrating for those drivers just stuck on pit road, waiting for their cars to be duct taped back together.
Kyle Pendergraft here, one of them, and you see that the front end of that car is completely gone, and Pendergraft has been in the pits now for 2 minutes going on, so he'll likely go a lap down from here potentially, unless some kind of miracle happens with his pit crew. Well, it's an all-Quick front row now. Neil Quick is going to take that front row start on the inside with Cook Quick alongside him. Brandon Leclerc moving up into 3rd place and Hunter Clark up into 4th. Remember, Hunter is the first of our cars to have not taken a pit stop, although he did tour through the pit lane.
Well, I feel like, gosh, I feel like the game has completely changed on this one. I mean, really, once you send a car 30 feet in the air, I guess it does probably change the tone of things, but we're only 14 laps in right now, Reese, and already some heavy hitters have been swatted out of the way.
Yeah, that they have. This is a top 10 I certainly didn't expect coming into this one. We got the 2 Quicks leading the field. Leclerc, Clark, Lyons in 5th. Josh Funkhauser into 6th place, and then we got Jeff Napier, Brian Reek, Brandon Mefford, and Brian Kaufman, your top 10.
You got Brian and Kevin McCann just outside of the top 10 also. Keep an eye on them.
As we go green once more, Neil Quick leads them across the line, and we get things going here at Daytona for the 2nd time. Our first caution of the race, and it happened about 14 laps in. It was a lot less coordinated of a start this time. Top 4 forming a little bit of a breakaway group, but they're starting to get rounded up by Funkhauser and Lyons. That's a great run from Cook Quick around the outside. He hasn't got anyone pushing him yet, but you do see Reek coming up on him there. Reek, of course, with Brian Kaufman and Jesse King in tow. And there we go. Once again, we have 2 rows of cars at the front of the field of about 5-6 cars each. And okay, all the way down to the apron goes Brandon Mefford, and he's slowing down. He's going for a green flag pit stop.
Wonder if that's a penalty or maybe a strategy play. But yeah, definitely an interesting choice there. You know, after that caution, I really thought we'd see things calm down a little bit. But I guess I was completely wrong. These guys are being just as aggressive as they were before the crash.
This is a black flag for Brandon Mefford. I just checked the entries tab, and he does have a black flag next to his name, so there was some kind of infringement on the caution or potentially on the restart that he took, maybe speeding into or out of pit lane. We are not sure, but the race will continue. Up at the front of the field, Cook, Quick, and Brian Reek are now your front row. Neil Quick has moved back into 4th with Brian Kaufman just overtaking him there around the outside. And we see Brandon Mefford re-emerge from the pits just behind them. He has gone a lap down on everyone else. And now, to morph and change here on the 17th lap. All right. Well, we have gotten some confirmation from our director Joe Peak that you can get a penalty for charging to the back of the field on a restart, because you could get an unfair advantage there if you're just going at a faster pace with space in front of you. when the race goes green. That is potentially what's happened to Brandon Method there. Still, he's got a lot of work to do. He's going to have to probably stay out in another pit cycle to try and get that track position back, or he could get the lucky dog, as we see now Reek and Kaufman fighting up at the front of the field. Things have changed once again. Reek has moved to the inside line, and Kaufman trying to work the top, dragging Jesse King along with him.
Now, real quick, it looked like pulled down and let the field go by. He was up at the front. Now he's deciding to run a last car on the lead lap.
Yeah, that's interesting. Not sure what happened to Neil Quick there, but he is way behind. And he's only got the number 51 of Chris Wally with him there. And those two are quite a ways back from the rest of the field, about 2.5 seconds. So they will be getting a whisper of a draft from here, but yeah, probably not. Looking at that physical distance between the cars, they are just going to be running all on their own. So they'll have to start working together to work their way back up to the rear.
Well, Neil Quick was front row center for that big caution, so I don't know, maybe he's still feeling a little gun shy and wants to maybe lay back and be there at the end. But yeah, definitely an interesting choice to just cannonball to the back like that.
We'll see how it works out for him. He and Chris Wally now the duo at the very back of this pack. Brian Kaufman, meanwhile, getting pushed by Jesse King, is going to try his best to work his way into the lead here. They can't switch down to the bottom just yet because we have Brian Reek and Cook Quick working together nicely there on the bottom. Coming out of the pits, meanwhile, we just saw there was Carl Pendergraft. Looks like the repairs were done for him, and he's come in for another pit stop besides. So he's going to come out with Neil Quick and Chris Wally there. But Pendergraft a fair way down on everyone else there.
Now, I feel like Daytona and Talladega are two of the tracks where being a lapped car, you can still have a really big impact on how the race plays out. You may not be in contention on the timing sheet, but you're just as much a part of the draft as anybody else out on the track. And unless you decide to really lay back and stay out of the way, you can still play the role of spoiler in this race.
Yeah, a race like this is all about surviving until the last couple of laps. Try and keep yourself out of trouble. Make sure that you don't get involved in any wrecks. And if you're there at the end, then you can turn up the aggression dial as we ride on board with Brandon Leclerc here. Looks like the top row has decided the time is over for making it double line up at the front. So it's Kaufman, King, Reek, Quick, and Clark. Your top five at the moment. Kevin McCann down in 17th at the moment, and looking on here as we have 4 cars up on the top row. We've got Jeff Napier being pushed by Joshua Funkhauser, and then we've got David Trumbley and Mike Koch who are losing a little bit of pace. Trumbley has picked up some front end damage somewhere, and that's losing an advantage as, oh, that's Kaufman into the wall. Oh dear, yellow flag out, and James Kaufman, a big shame for him. Looked like there was a bit of a checkup up ahead, and he got hit from behind by Mike Harper in the number 4. You see the checkup there, and then Harper just tags him and gets sent up into the wall. Oh.
These cars are really hard to see through what's going on ahead of you, so if something happens up ahead, you don't really have a lot of time to react, and unfortunately the 4 basically ran over the 41 there.
Yeah, we see, I think that's Aaron Smith up ahead. He saw that checkup happening and moved up to the top line, and Kaufman thought, oh, maybe I can do that, but no, down to the bottom again, and then the number 4 didn't have much time to react, just got into the right rear and sent him all the way up into the safer barriers, and that was quite a heavy impact. So I think James Kaufman's going to be in the pits for some time there. Thankfully, it seems only a couple of cars were involved in that incident, so not the big one that we saw before.
Yeah, and a couple of these guys have already had pretty heavy hits, so this is going to make their day far from better.
Well, Kaufman out of the pits now, got some damage repair. It was an 8.8 second stop for him. And no surprise to see that the majority of the field have decided to come in for a second stop. And it's going to be a first pit stop for some of these guys. Neil Quick still has yet to come into the pit lane, but there we go. He is in at the back of the train. So everyone in the field has completed at least one pit stop so far. We'll see who wins the race off pit road. Staying out, meanwhile, our top 5 at the moment: Aaron Smith, Brian and Kevin McCann, and of course Brian Kaufman taking that damage repair has re-emerged in 4th place. No, sorry, that's Brian Kaufman, not James Kaufman. My apologies. We got 2 Kaufmans, 2 McCanns, and 2 Methods as well in the field at the majority of these races. Sometimes it does get a little bit confusing.
Yeah, it's really hard to recognize these guys by last name because so many of them share last names.
Indeed. Well, it was our top 3 that did not come into the pits that time around. Smith and the 2 McCanns. Well, they're back at the front of the field now, and running down on the apron, it seems, is Aaron Smith. Not too sure what the deal is there. Apparently, that is a fuel-saving tactic.
Well, every little bit counts. You start saving now, and that's less time that you have to spend on pit road later, so every little bit of saving you can do really does help you out in the long run.
Also making their way into the pits, we've got Brandon Mefford, we've got Dakota Clark, and we have Mike Harper as well. Still down in the lane from that incident, and Mike Koch making his way into the lane too. Number 83, Brandon Mefford, completes his 6.4 second stop there. He's going to re-emerge in 22nd spot. And now, lights are off on the pace car, and it's going to be Brian McCann and Aaron Smith on our front row here. And things are looking a bit more normal up at the front now.
Yeah, I figured it was only a matter of time before the McCanns ended up at the front here. They're 2 of the most proficient super speedway drivers in this series, and I figured they would be there sooner than later.
All right, past the bus stop, the chicane used on the road course layout for the Daytona 24. Of course, the drivers won't be worrying about negotiating any right-handers here today. See what the pace car can do to not make many more appearances here tonight. At Martinsville, the pace car was certainly a contender for most laps led, and that won't be the case here at Daytona, hopefully. Aaron Smith will lead them away here, inside front row, to begin the 26th lap. We have passed a quarter race distance here at Daytona in round 10 of the IROC Challenge Series. The green flag flies, and we're away once again for the 3rd time here. Aaron Smith dragging Kevin McCann along. Will Brian slot him behind his brother? He will indeed.
Yeah, the McCanns work pretty well together in this environment. And they're proving that here again today, being drafting partners.
Have a look at the run that they're getting on that high line. They are actually ahead fully of Aaron Smith, and they move down to the bottom there to assume the top 2 positions. Brian Kaufman is up there as well in the white machine, and keeping himself a factor And he's going to get a nice push from Jeff Napier, Donnie Lyons, and Cook Quick. All drivers running in your top 10. But once again, as the race goes on, we're seeing less and less drivers decide that the high line is the way to go. Problem is, for drivers like Brian Kaufman, there's no space at the moment to move down to the low line and try to stay with that front pack.
Yeah, it really does make things even more difficult when you're kind of hung out like that.
Cool. That was an aggressive move down to the inside there for Donnie Lyons, who, once again, we saw that fantastic incident avoidance under the first caution. And, wow, Brian Kaufman, he is really stuck out there. You can tell that he wants to get down low, but it's a proper train of cars here. He's going to try and get some side draft off of Quick and Lyons. Will this work out for him? David Brown, fastest lap now. We're into the 46-second bracket as we are truly in nighttime conditions now.
And that's only going to make these cars go faster. So far, track temperature maintaining, but that cool night air will make these cars really get going a little bit faster.
Looks like our top 5 cars are clear of that high line. Brian Reek up into 5th, and it's going to be 6 cars now as Hunter Clark joins them in the number 54, and Clark is one of those drivers who's trying to secure a spot in the playoffs. We will have to see how the rest of this race goes for him. Almost coming up to a 3rd race distance, and that's interesting. Aaron Smith moving up to the high line. Looks like he is going to try and work with Brian Kaufman here, and they can try and have a run at getting back into the lead from here. Seems that Smith is a little sick of the McCanns leading.
Well, he's doing his best out there, but unfortunately that high line is not cooperating with him.
No, it isn't. You might see him move back down eventually. Oh, actually, coming down the back stretch, you can see that that little push there from Brian Kaufman is really helping Aaron Smith at the moment. And not the back stretch, that's the run up to and past the start-finish line. This is turn 1. It does take about half a lap or so for the benefits to really be seen, but yeah, now that they're on the back stretch again, we're seeing more drivers moving up to the high line. Aaron Smith was a bit of a trailblazer there. He said, "Okay, guys, I'll move up to the high line. I'll drag all of you along. You lot can give me a push, and we'll see what we can do to work against the low line."
You know, one of the things about being one of the fastest guys, as Aaron Smith has shown, is sometimes you're the Pied Piper and sometimes you're the court jester. In this case, it seems like whatever he's going to do, you're going to see people try to do the opposite. But in this case, he's been the Pied Piper as that outside line is finally surging up ahead.
It is indeed, and everyone just negotiating. James Kaufman there, who has had some bad luck this race so far. Kaufman's managed to slot himself into the low line a bit far down. Here we go then. Front stretch once again, and ramping off the banking. A good amount of speed for the drivers in the high line, but the McCanns are working together really well at the front of that low line. And they're continuing to drag Jesse King and Brian Reek along with them as well. It's always a matter of waiting with bated breath for the next incident to happen.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Reese. Daytona is stressful, especially as a driver, but even more so as a fan, because as a driver, you're kind of there in the thick of things, doing your race. But gosh, when you're a fan, you see everything, and for us up here in the booth, we have the benefit of a lot of different views of this, and gosh, it can really stress you out when you see somebody throw a block that maybe they shouldn't have, or move a little erratically, or give somebody a push that they're not ready for. And you see it all here. And yeah, like you said, you're waiting with bated breath for the next thing to happen.
It's another small advantage down the backstretch for that high line, but it seems that once they start getting up to the McCanns, their efforts are stalling a little bit. Aaron Smith and Brian Kaufman aren't getting much help from behind. We do see that Jeff Napier is starting to come up behind them. And that red and grey machine you see in the background there as we're on board with Kevin McCann, you can see the amount of wheel work that you have to go through around a track like this when you're racing in a pack. Not just the turbulence you were talking about before, Chris, but also the ever so slight bumps from the car behind, especially if it happens through the turns. You have to be right on your game here and make sure that you keep the wheel as straight as possible.
And this is the updated version of Daytona. You go back to that original scan, all the bumps and craters in that track, and oh yeah, you're racing the track more than the competition, just trying to keep it from falling into a sinkhole.
Absolutely. It was fun back in the Majors series earlier on in the year. Actually, it would have been last year when they ran the NASCAR 1987 cars around the original scan of Daytona. That was a very fun time. You had drivers really working it, almost driving it like a road course.
Gosh, I could only imagine how much steering you'd have to put into that one.
Oh yeah. I remember when the 87 cars first came out, and I decided, yeah, let's take it around the original scan of Daytona, see how it handles. And boy, it was an experience for someone like me who's not really an oval racing person for the most part, being down in Australia. The only ovals that we work with down here are the dirt ones. But the billiard smooth tarmac surface of Daytona, playing host to what has been a very intense race so far. We are past 1/3 race distance, and we're gradually coming up to that first stage caution. It should be coming out around the 40th lap. And the field was just making their way past, I believe it was Dakota Clark, who had taken another pit stop, I believe. Yes, Dakota Clark having just come out of the pits and getting a little bit more damage repair. Good space between naturally occurring cautions here. And that's going to be a problem for drivers who are carrying some damage from previous incidents. They're going to have to deal with a long green flag run and just losing time in a high-speed sense because of that slight aero damage that they'll still be carrying. And that's the dilemma. Do you pit and get the damage repair, go a lap or even 2 laps down, or do you just stick it out and wait for the next caution? What is worth it?
Yeah, and your level of damage is obviously going to play a lot into that decision as well. There's some drivers here that have the front ends wrinkled up on their cars, and you get tucked up behind somebody, you can really overcome that in the draft, because that part of the fascia of the vehicle isn't what's out in the wind, but it makes you a really good pusher. But if you had plans on leading the race, forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Pipeline starting to come to fruition here as we approach the end of the first stage. And there goes Aaron Smith. He is now ahead of the McCanns, but not far up enough to move down. And oh dear, that's a problem. Bit of a check up there. Oh, that's going to be a caution. Oh, Brian McCann. What on earth happened to him there?
That's definitely going to be one of your favorites that's out of this one.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we get the replay of it, and as they come into the turn, the McCanns were together coming into the turn here. But it just seems McCann lost the rear a little, and then he had to check up. People made their way around him, but then Number 81, Joshua Funkhauser, got into him, and that caused a bit of a crush behind that ended up taking Brian McCann out of contention for the podium for the time being.
Yeah, you can see heavy damage on the number 3 there, so that's, gosh, that's just bad news for him.
This is the view from Matthew Kopp's perspective. He wouldn't have seen this because he had a car in front of him. Oh, he would have gotten a slight view of it and immediately slowing down. And, okay. That is a lucky escape there for Matthew Kopp.
Yeah, it's never a good thing when a car's coming at your windshield.
Well, either way, he has managed to escape. And it's Aaron Smith who has taken the lead of the race, and Kevin is the only McCann who can fight him now at the moment. We'll see what happens here in the pit stops. Who wins the race off pit road once more, as we're under our third natural caution of the race. So into the pit stops they come, and will this be a case of all 4 tyres for the majority of these guys? They know that the second stage is going to be starting soon, so having all 4 fresh tyres on the car would be a good idea. But we see that Brian Kaufman has decided to go for, I think, just right side tyres, and he is leading out of pit road. Kevin McCann and Tim Schofield make their way out there. Aaron Smith coming out in 4th place, I believe. Leclerc, Napier, Cook Quick, Jesse King, Matthew Kopp, and Mike Koch are your top 10. We'll throw to a quick break here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Plenty more to come here in round 10 of the IROC Challenge Series from Daytona.
Spartan Transportation and Spartan Logistic Management is your one source for all your shipping needs. 53-foot dry van shipments, auto transport shipments, full-service in-house brokerage, drop lot facilities, just-in-time deliveries to all auto manufacturers, facilities in St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, and Indianapolis, Indiana. Spartan Logistics LLC, proud sponsor of the IROC Series, Kyle Steffens UMP Modified and Silver Crown Driver, and Gordy Gundaker, World of Outlaws late model. Visit us at spartan-logistics.net or find us on Facebook.
All right, we're back here at Daytona International Speedway for the IROC Challenge Series. Coming back to green after our first stage break, and right now it's Brian Kaufman leading things in the 41 car.
It is indeed.
Well, Reese, the pace car's off here, and we're back to green.
We are indeed. It's quite the interesting run here that everyone's had. And number 33 of Kevin McCann is going to be the one leading them away here. A little bit of a better run off the green flag, and he's getting pushed by the 21 of Brandon Leclerc. We got Cook Quick up there on the high line as well. We'll see what Tim Schofield can do to help out Brian Kaufman here in their run for the lead. Aaron Smith going to the back of the field. End of line penalties for him. Kevin and Brian McCann, and also Brian Reek too.
Yeah, things have really fallen into the hands there for Kevin McCann. He was doing a great job leading before and had the support of his brother behind him, but now he's holding his own up front all by himself.
Yeah, not the best position for him to be in right now. So we're on our 43rd lap now of this race. Coming up to lap 44. And we see that the high line is has not formed up just yet. It seems that drivers tend to wait for a green flag run to continue for a while because before they really start having a serious attempt at making the high line work.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the outside line is pretty disorganized. A lot of separation between the different cars up there. So right now, it doesn't seem like a very concerted effort from the outside to make a run. But, I mean, the top three there are still holding their own up in the top. Oh, and we got the 21 going high. This is, it's giving me flashbacks to that first caution.
Yeah, me too. Got to be careful, guys. And moving back down to the low line is Cook Quick in the 23. Brandon Leclerc stuck there on the high line. Now it seems that the low line is where you want to be. Look at the momentum that they are carrying. This is interesting. It looks like Jeff Napier and Cook Quick have decided to move back up to the high line there, coming out of turn 4. And Cook has a nice bit of momentum here with side draft from the cars below him. And Jeff Napier will be coming up very shortly to give him a push.
And got a lapped car out there. That's such an awkward feeling when you're the lone guy by himself on a super speedway. It's almost like you don't know where to go to get out of the way, and my go-to was always just to pull on the apron and hope for the best.
Car going into the pits just up ahead of them. That is going to be Jamie Abril. Actually, no, he's gone down to the apron to let them all go. So he will resume running, and there won't be much to talk about from that after that occurrence. McCann is still the one leading, though, and Brian Kaufman in tow here, but Cook Quick is starting to lead that charge on the high line, dragging Jeff Napier and Brandon Leclerc along with him. And we also see James Kaufman too starting to come up behind them, and Kaufman is out of position at the moment. He's down in 20th place and 2 laps down, but he could still be a factor in this fight.
Yeah, you can see some damage on that one, but again, he's hanging out there in the draft, so the car may be wounded, but that doesn't mean his day's over.
Yep, if he stays out under the next couple cautions and tries to go for track position, then he can certainly get back onto the lead lap and start challenging like he was early on in the race. Highline running middle of the road down the back stretch just to get a little bit of side draft off the cars below them. Awesome to see how calm and controlled Cook Quick is through the turns. He's just able to hold that middle line and stay there like a rock in the middle of the ocean.
That's a great analogy there too. Really does kind of shore up what's going on. with Cook quick up in that outside line, just holding his own, but not quite able to get the push up there that he needs.
Yeah, and if you're on the high line and you're the car in front, you're relying on everyone behind you to number one, keep pace with you, and number two, avoid getting too much into incidents themselves and have to check up. The problem for Cook Quick right now is that Jeff Napier is not quite close enough to get the bump draft on. And he does occasionally, but then he drops back a little more, and that momentum is lost once again.
Yeah, you know, you make a really fair point being the lead car on the line, having to depend on those behind you. And, I mean, having to depend on your competition is really such an disconcerting feeling. I mean, I doubt the guy that wants to beat you to the line is going to be the one that has your best interest in mind as soon as it stops being useful to him. And right now, you can see that outside line, nobody really taking that approach yet. Everyone is kind of out on their own, doing their own thing, but looks like we may have a challenge as Aaron Smith now dropping to the back.
Yep, Aaron Smith falls a lap down. And Smith only pitted 6 laps ago. So it seems that there were some further issues for the number 70. He is back there now with Brian McCann. And they are racing each other for position. They will try and work together, I believe, to get back onto the lead lap and see what they can do to get themselves back into the top 10, top 5, maybe even the podium positions by the end of this one. At the end of this lap, we will have reached half race distance at Daytona. Another point to make, though, is that Smith and McCann, they are both racing for the lucky dog position, though. The first car a lap or more down. And under caution, if you're the lead car a lap down, you do get that lucky dog, and you are released. You can make your way back around to the rear of the field. So the issue for Brian McCann now is, can he pass Aaron Smith for that lucky dog position? Halfway complete here at Daytona.
I'd say this is the point where the intensity really starts to rise, but it's already been really intense, so I'd hate to see what this is going to be like if it does get a little more intense.
Well, it looks like the high line is completely gone now up at the front of the field. Cook Quick has decided he's had enough, and he's moved into the low line on board with Matthew Kopp in 9th. And you'll see that Aaron Smith, after dropping back, is now working the high line there behind Jeff Napier and Carl Pendergraft. And oh goodness, Napier had to make a bit of a correction there. It looked like there was a slight bit of rear-end contact from Pendergraft, but it's worked out, and we've avoided an incident for the time being.
Yeah, we have a few drivers that are up in that outside line, but for the most part, it seems like everyone's trying to be a little bit more processional with things to keep it a little more under control. Of course, as I say that, they nearly almost wrecked right on camera. So maybe take what I said there with a grain of salt.
Ay, ay, ay. All right. Let's calm it down a bit, boys. Cook Quick in P5 and pushing to try and get to the front of this low line. Not going to happen for the time being. There are only 3 cars up there on the high line. That would be Napier, Pendergraft, and Smith a lap down. The problem for these guys is they have no chance of getting down low. Aaron Smith might, though, and there we go. The gap opens, and he's like, okay, cool, no worries. But Cook Quick, moving up to the high line, he's going to have another go at this.
Yeah, Cook's really been the one that has been trying to make the most happen out there in this second stage, but I don't know, maybe he, I don't know what he did, but maybe, doesn't look like he's had very many friends behind him today.
Yeah, he's been a bit strung out on his own, hasn't he, Quick? Since that first. Oh, hello. Kevin McCann goes into the pits, and there's contact. There's contact in the pits. Green flag pit stop, and Tim Schofield lost the rear on the way into the lane and cleaned up Kevin McCann. We'll see another view of it here. McCann from the lead makes his way into the pits from here, and you'll see Schofield follow him in the number 12, but on the brakes, Schofield loses the rear. McCann slows down for the pits, and bam! That would have been a nasty surprise for the 33.
Yeah, I mean, as far as that situation goes, it was as good as he could have hoped for being kind of knocked around in the pit lane.
Well, out of the pits they come, and it looks like Neil Quick did jump him as a result of that. But the rest of the field, these are your leaders coming up behind them at quite a rate of speed. Quick is the one who leads on the low line. That could have been a tactical decision there to pit early under green flag conditions for McCann and friends. They themselves will go a lap down now. And there we go, more green flag stops, and easy there, Donnie Lyons. Catches the grass on the way into the pit lane. Thank goodness that didn't happen at too high a speed, otherwise we might have seen a repeat of that earlier incident, and into the pit box he comes.
Is there anything more stressful as a driver than green flag pit stops on a super speedway?
I don't think so.
It is just the right combination of having to be on the brakes just the right amount, and also not get ran over from anybody from behind, and also not run over anybody. And in the case of Mr. Lyons there, maybe try to stay away from the cones.
Yeah, indeed. Looks like a penalty there for Donnie Lyons. He probably did clean up the cones a little bit, or sped into pit lane, and so he would have gotten a penalty for that. Well, now, as more green flag pit stops happen, that leaves Jeff Napier, Chris and Brandon Method, and Matthew Kopp, your top four. But Napier is the only one actually racing out there in the lead right now. He's got McCann with him, and these guys are a little four-car pack. Kevin McCann down in 14th place, racing alongside Dakota Clark, who's down in 21st and 6 laps down. So things have gotten interesting here at Daytona with these green flag pit stops. This is going to really spread the field out, and that reduces the likelihood of an incident bringing out a caution. It also means that the field is incredibly mixed up right now. Your top three are Napier, Trumbull, and King.
Well, yeah, it's really topsy-turvy here. I mean, it's not every day you see a 32-second advantage on a super speedway.
Indeed. You'd have to go back to the 1970s before they started running full course cautions and stages and all that for a lead like that to happen. But keep our eyes peeled here on Napier. 20 laps on that set of tyres, and the same goes for Trumbull, who we were looking at just before, running in second place. And Trumbull is still carrying that little bit of front end damage he picked up early on.
Yeah, it's been Trumbull has really been hanging out towards the front of the field for the majority of this race, despite all that damage. It has not looked fun to drive in the draft, but he's really been holding his own. So him being up where he's at is not an outlier by any stretch of the imagination.
Indeed. I'll tell you what, there is a very hefty fight going on now for third back. The pack for fourth has caught up to David Trumbley, and look at all of these guys together here. Majority of these drivers pitted 2, 3, 4 laps ago, and they've all come back together now. And that's the number 51 of Chris Wally getting a bit of a push from Chris Mefford just behind him. Number 22, meanwhile, Matthew Kopp, getting pushed by, I believe that's Chris Mefford up behind him. And we've got Brian McCann with them as well. But Brian is still a lap down on the rest of the field because of his earlier incident. And not much he can do to make an impression on these guys right now, at least, but we still have plenty of this race to go, and we are rapidly approaching the end of the second stage. Remember, around the lap 75 mark is where we're going to be seeing that second stage caution.
Yeah, this really could work out well for Jeff Napier too. He is in a group of cars right now, so he's definitely not hung out on his own. And if he can maintain this draft with those other cars, he could really carry this lead off into some good track position going into the final stage.
He definitely could. Started in 19th spot, did Jeff Napier, but has avoided incidents and made his way towards the front of the field. Now that he has Kevin McCann with him, and the other cars besides, it will be a nice opportunity here for him to do that. He'll fall to the back of this line here, but he won't be too fussed about that.
Save him a little bit of gas too, running back there in fourth in line in the draft, even though he's leading the race.
Absolutely. Fuel is always a factor in super speedway races of this length. So any fuel you can save out there on track will pay dividends when you come into the pit lane next. Aaron Smith in the midst of this pack here, led by the number 25 of Jesse King. And this is the battle for second on back, but Aaron Smith down in 14th place.
Man, I gotta tell you, looking at this running order, it's really throwing me off to see all of our top runners here right up in the mix, but it's not actually for the lead for Aaron Smith, who's a lap down. I mean, he's in that lucky dog spot, but he's just kind of the fly in the ointment here.
He is, but I think the likes of number 20, Jamie Abril, will definitely be... Oh, no. There we go. That's going to be another caution, I believe. Is it? No? We stay green. They got off the racetrack. Matthew Kopp going down to the apron. That was some pretty heavy contact there. So what happened? Kopp potentially getting tagged there. So we had the number 21 of Brandon Leclerc giving a bump. And then Leclerc checks up, moves up the circuit, and yeah, that's a shame. Didn't look like there was actually contact between the cars. Amazing that we stayed green out of that.
I do see Jeff Napier, our leader, heading down pit road.
Oh, he is.
So that's going to be a little bit of a change there.
Yeah, well, both he and David Trumbley have thrown up the white flag now. And that was a pretty good stop there for Jeff Napier, 7 seconds in length. And now, Jesse King will come through take the lead of the race here as Napier re-enters the apron. Oh, okay. Easy does it, Jeff. He's got to be careful. Oh, he's caught the banking has Napier, and he almost looped around. So not the best of pit exits there for Jeff Napier, who finally gets back onto the racetrack. But now it is Jesse King who leads this race by 5.1 seconds over Brandon Leclerc and Chris Mefford, who are fighting in that pack just behind. Actually, when I say pack, it's literally just the two of them that are fighting together there for second and third on the road at the moment, and they both pitted at least 9 laps ago, so they're good to go into the second stage. Now it's just a case of trying to work together and blast their way up to Jesse King, who is effectively on the same strategy as they are. Jesse King's tyres are only a lap older than Brandon Leclerc's, and Leclerc's tyres are only a lap older than Mefford's.
Yeah, this is plain enough to be one of the stranger super speedway races I've really ever seen, Reese. Oh, and caution. I don't see what happened.
Yeah, there's been a big crash. Tim
Oh, there it
Schofield.
is.
Schofield in the 12 has gone for a massive tumble. And it looks like it was contact with Neil Quick. So we'll see Schofield go to the inside here. And he's going to move up in a second, but he's not clear of Neil Quick. And the contact happens right there, and boom. Gets sent up and around. No surprise to see that brought out a caution.
Man, Neil Quick has really been caught up in a few of those where he's really been the one that people decide to wreck off of.
Well, there's potential here for this being the end of stage 2. It's happened very close to the typical mark that we would see the second stage ends, so we'll see whether or not this caution is continued. Saw a message earlier from Brian McCann in the InSim text chat saying that he blew up right after going red. So I think there's been some further issues for Brian McCann, and that would have happened some time ago. Only just noticing that message now. Well, Chris Mefford and Cook Quick, as well as Neil Quick, Brian Kaufman and Mike Koch, make their way into the lane. Donnie Lyons as well. And it looks like Aaron Smith, as a result, will move up into 6th spot. And Smith well and truly back onto the lead lap now. But remember, he still has an end-of-line penalty to worry about here coming into the final stage.
That's right. But honestly, the way he's been racing and the way things have been playing out, moving to the end, probably not the worst thing in the world for Aaron Smith.
Yeah, well, he's certainly been very quick to get back up to the front after starting end of line, hasn't he?
Yeah, and it only came back to bite him one time so far.
Well then, Jesse King leads. Brandon Leclerc, Chris Wally, Jeff Napier, and Kevin McCann. Your top 5 with Aaron Smith just behind them. There's still big gaps between packs in this field here in the IROC Challenge Series. And we've still got quite a bit of racing to go and potential for green-white checkers too. What will happen in the remaining 30 laps of this race?
Have we been able to determine if they decided this was the stage break?
No, not quite yet. If we get a call that that we're not going green, in the next lap or so, then that will be the call that we're waiting for. The lights are off on the pace car, so as things stand right now, we will be going green at the end of this lap, and we'll probably get another few laps of racing before the stage caution comes into effect.
So it's going to leave us with roughly 5 laps before the stage break.
Indeed. Yeah, series administrator Chris Wally, currently in 4th, is the one who has his finger over the button to extend cautions if need be. And we have half a lap to go before we start going racing, and I would say that if he had decided this would be the stage caution, he would have made that call by now. So I'll stick my head out and assume that we are going green for another few laps of racing here at Daytona before the second stage caution happens, and we get ourselves set for the end game phase of this very interesting, very strange super speedway race.
Yeah, this has definitely been a very unique situation here. The way this race has played out is unlike anything I've ever seen, just adding to the drama of this being the cutoff before the playoffs.
Pace car in, and Jesse King will be the one controlling the field as they come to the green flag. They're in the restart zone, and away they go. Jesse King gets a pretty good jump there, and he'll try and carry Chris Wally and Kevin McCann with him. The high line not getting off to a great start there, with Brandon Leclerc leading the charge up top. Jeff Napier and Aaron Smith with them as well. They are losing pace, and Cook Quick moving to the bottom immediately. He wants to be there when the green flag flies. Oh, looks like that was a bit of a problem for King, though. Lost some momentum, and now he's fallen back into 6th place, it seems. Brandon Leclerc sees a gap open on the inside, and he moves down to the low line. So now it is Chris Wally, who leads the race, with Kevin McCann rapidly in tow.
Yeah, Kevin McCann, no stranger to being up front in this one.
Donnie Lyons with some heavy damage. He's having to run super high to make way for all of these guys. And it looks like the field passes him without incident. Good to see.
How tough do you think the decision to throw the stage caution is going to be for Chris Wally there while he's leading the race?
Yeah, certainly going to be tough, but I think as far as I've seen this season, Wally has no problem removing his driver hat and putting on his race control hat when things call for it. But the high line is starting to come back here, with Chris Mefford now leading the charge there. Up into 2nd. Towing Jesse King along, who's decided to switch to the high line himself. The drivers, of course, will be in communication with each other as to how to negotiate all of this. It's amazing, to think that a race where you're fighting against these people for positions. You want to be the one who wins, but you have to work together until the last lap or so if you want to be in a position to win in the first place. The ramp off the banking coming onto the start-finish stretch works out well for the high line once more. Coming on to lap 74. The stage caution is only a lap or so away. Oh, and Wally pushes a little high there into turn 1. Almost cleaned up Chris Mefford, but they keep it clean.
Wondering if he was maybe going for a bit of a side draft there just to try to maintain that lead, but it did not quite work out. He dips a couple tires down below the yellow line on the back straightaway, but doesn't seem any worse for wear.
Yeah, maintains the lead coming out of turn 4. And coming into the pits, a couple cars behind as we reach lap 75. Now the stage caution should be coming out any moment now, any lap now. They might be thinking that because they had that caution so close to the stage caution. No. Being corrected in my ear, of course, by Joe Peak. There's regular Reese Gardner gaffes happening here in the comms box pretty much every week. End of lap 75 is when the stage caution will come out. So it looks like Chris Wally is going to be the first driver across the line, potentially. Oh, no, he might not be. That is a great run off the banking there for Chris Mefford. And he's going to lead across the line to begin lap 76. And the caution flag has been thrown by Kyle Pendergraft. So that is the end of stage 2. And it's Chris's Method and Wally, your top 2 going into this. Now, we'll have to wait and see, because who will come into the pits this time around? I would suspect that not many drivers would elect to come into the pits because the last caution where many drivers pitted was so long ago. No, not very long ago, I should say. So plenty of the field still with some fresh rubber on their cars.
Yeah, the strategy play on this one is going to be really interesting to see, because we had cars ducking off as soon as the lap before the caution to try and get things serviced before this one got back underway.
Well, they'll be coming around to the pit lane very soon, and we'll see whether Mefford and Wally decide to lead the charge into pit lane. They come up behind the pace car on the back stretch, just going past the bus stop. It's looking like drivers like Wally and King, along with Kevin McCann and Aaron Smith and Brandon Leclerc, they might go for the pits here because they have been on those tyres for longer than 20 laps. And you could probably say the same for Brian McCann as well. However, McCann has the lucky dog potentially hanging over his head. So he might elect to stay out and take that lucky dog and then jump into the pits shortly after. We'll keep an eye here on the entry to pit lane. Moving down low is Chris Mefford. Is this going to be a fake out for him? No, it's not. He is committing to the pit lane. And we have the majority of the field coming into the pits. No surprise to see that Brian McCann stays out. He wants that lap back. And we'll see if he comes into the pits next time around. All right. Pit crews alert and ready, and we'll see how many drivers decide to go for all 4 tyres here. Seems to me that Chris Mefford is the one who leads the way out of pit lane. We've got Mike Koch now up into 3rd overall. Cook Quick, meanwhile, pitted 3 laps ago, and he is back into the lead of this race. So Cook Quick has definitely played this very nicely in advance of the impending stage caution. So we've got plenty more to come here at Daytona. The end of the 2nd stage, the start of the final stage. Who is going to take victory here in virtual Florida? We'll be back very shortly here on the Global SimRacing Channel to find out.
Spartan Transportation and Spartan Logistic Management is your one source for all your shipping needs. 53-foot dry van shipments, auto transport shipments, full-service in-house brokerage, drop lot facilities, just-in-time deliveries to all auto manufacturers, facilities in St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, and Indianapolis, Indiana. Spartan Logistics LLC, proud sponsor of the IROC series, Kyle Steffens UMP Modified and Silver Crown driver, and Gordy Gundaker, World of Outlaws late model. Visit us at spartan-logistics.net or find us on Facebook.
Well, lights off on the pace car here in round 10 of the IROC Challenge Series at Daytona, the last round of the regular championship before we go into the playoffs. Reese Gardner and Chris Phoebe with you in the comms box, with Joe Peak handling production behind the scenes. And looks to me as though the caution has been extended as soon as we came back. So we'll be out here for a couple more laps, Chris, which means there's a bit more time to consider all the permutations of how this race might end. Chris Mefford is the one who leads. Cook Quick is the one who leads, my apologies. Quick pitting a few laps before this stage caution came out. So he's put himself in a really good position here towards the end, hasn't he?
Yeah, and as the guy that's kind of been hung out to dry throughout this race, now that he's got the lead, I suppose he has no choice but to make them friends. It's kind of like the kid who forces everyone to go to his birthday party.
Indeed. Well then, there's going to be some pretty intense racing going on here, because we have drivers that have really made their way up through the field from qualifying. Cook Quick is up 12 positions. Chris Mefford is up 20. Jeff Napier in 5th. He was leading the race before the second stage caution, and he has made up 13, 14 spots, and he's in contention for a top 5 right now. We also see that Chris Wally, who was fighting for the lead before the second stage caution came out, up 14 places from where he started. So he is another one of those drivers who has had a magnificent race so far.
Yeah, and only 12 cars on the lead lap right now. This is a pretty unique race as far as Daytona goes.
Yeah, indeed it is. Usually we see plenty of cars still on the lead lap at this point in a race, but the green flag pit stops in the mid phase really threw everything out, didn't they? As the pace car comes in, and we will begin the final stage here. We've still got some green-white checkers to come if we need them, but Cook Quick is going to lead them away in the restart zone. Chris Mefford is going to be leading the charge on that high line. He's dragging Neil Quick and David Trumbley along with him. And Chris's brother Brandon on the tail of that train too, is picking up the draft there from Mike Koch. But the high line is looking fantastic right now. Cook Quick has a bit of front end damage to deal with, and that might be hurting his straight line speed. So down to the low line goes Neil Quick and Chris Mefford. Now your top two in this race, and it's up to David Trumbley now to try and lead the charge on the high line here, with Brandon Mefford up behind him. Onto the back straight for the 81st time. Magnificent pack. Once again, it's not the back stretch. I really need to be looking for landmarks here at Daytona. I keep thinking we're coming onto the back stretch when we're actually onto the start-finish stretch.
Yeah, those ones are a bit different here.
looking a bit down below the apron there was Jesse King, but seems to have fallen back into it. Cook quick, trying to go for third here, right in the draft of Neil. Chris Method leads across the line here to start lap 82. As we check out Mike Koch here, up behind them. Pretty fantastic run that Mike Koch has been having. He qualified well, and he's been staying in contention for a top 5 position all race. It seems Daytona is a track that really suits him, and this style of racing is one that he's quite good at.
I just want to know where that giant beer mug was stashed at.
Probably just out of view of the camera, out of the bottom of frame. He's probably taking big swigs under caution.
Daytona would do that to me too.
Yeah, certainly me. All right, into turn 1 we go once more, and the low line seems to be where you want to be at the moment, but there's no space for drivers on the high line to move down, and that was close to the safer barrier there for David Trumbley, who is starting to be pushed properly now by Brandon Mefford. And we see Aaron Smith working his way through there. Aaron Smith running middle of the road and dipping down low once again. Smith, of course, with very hard race to negotiate here. Ryan McCann as well, making his way back up into the top 10 too. So now we're starting to see our usual suspects work their way up. We briefly go 3 wide, and Brandon Mefford gets into the wall. Oh, and that has taken out the number 22 of Matthew Kopp, but we stay green. Matthew Kopp hit down onto the grass. Mefford just collected the safer barrier, it seems, all by himself. Get a very quick replay of that. Focusing on the number 22, and this was coming into turn 1. You'll see Brandon Mefford just up ahead get into the barrier, and oh yeah, managed to work his way out, but the wall just spat him out and right into Matthew Kopp. Back to live pictures though, and Brian McCann is charging forward, getting pushed by Aaron Smith and Jesse King. And to the low line he comes. So Brian McCann now back into the lead of this race. And Aaron Smith will be fighting with him. Jesse King has had a fantastic run here too, hasn't he? That number 25 has been up in the fight for the lead pretty much the whole way through. At least when you don't factor in green flag pit stops.
Yeah, Jesse's been doing a yeoman's job keeping it up at the front of the field.
This purple car has been a consistent factor at Daytona. But the yellow cars and the yellow and blue cars have also been ones to watch out for. Number 3, Brian McCann. Racing at super speedways, always a strong place for the McCanns. Kevin is in 7th at the moment and trying to catch up to his brother there. Earlier on in the season at Fontana, the McCanns were leading 1 and 2 when they came together under green flag conditions. And they'll be hoping that they can avoid that this time and grab a super speedway win. But Jesse King is looking quite good here, getting pushed by Aaron Smith down the front stretch through the tri-oval. But Smith moves down low. McCann moves up high. He's staying middle of the road. Not quite sure where he wants to go potentially, but Smith giving Neil Quick a big push there to get the number 2 into the lead. And this on board from Cook Quick really shows what pack racing at Daytona is like. They have to lift into the turns. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, no. That's a bit of a surprise there for Cook Quick. Number 21, making contact with him. That's Brandon Leclerc. And Cook Quick is out of contention there. Leclerc manages to get back onto the racetrack. What on earth happened there? We were taken by surprise there. I'm certain Cook Quick was too. Might have been contact from behind. So we'll keep an eye on the 33 of McCann there. Yeah, Kevin McCann made contact with Leclerc, and that brought Leclerc down into Cook Quick. And got another hit for his troubles as well. That's a big shame for all of those drivers. Well, there is still a Quick at the front of the field, but he's starting to be rounded up by Brian McCann once again. This time McCann up high and trying to get pushed along by Jesse King, but there's not much of a push coming from behind that time. The low line has come back into the Goldilocks zone, and Aaron Smith and Neil Quick doing a very good job here at the front of the field.
Yeah, we've got just under 10 laps, or just over 10 laps remaining, and it's definitely anyone's game here with the top 12 still right within close proximity of each other.
Yep, these top 12 cars all still on the lead lap. Cook Quick, though, has dropped off a large amount. So really, we're focusing on the top 9 in positions at the moment, with Wally and Leclerc together about 16 seconds back. The entry to the turns, always the best place for drivers on the low line to try and get some more momentum. Neil Quick probably could have afforded to go high if he wanted to, but I think he's just decided that it's best to stay low for the time being. If we get to later on in the stint and he decides it's time, then maybe that'll be a good decision, but I'm not too sure at the moment. Mike Koch still running in 9th spot here. And the last car for position in this group. The problem is, if you want to try and make a run, you're going to have to wait until potentially the last 4 laps in order to get it done. Kevin McCann potentially might have a race control decision hanging over his head for that contact with number 21, Brandon Leclerc, earlier on, that took out Cook Quick as well. But his eyes forward for the time being on his ultra-wide monitor. They're trying to give Jesse King a bit of a push here. Get themselves back up to Brian. And bring in a charge forward.
These last few laps, I mean, it really comes down to timing. You got to be in the right place, but you really got to make your move at the right time if you want to have a chance at victory.
Coming up to some lapped traffic. Matthew Kopp and Cook Quick. We'll have to run a little bit low here into the first turn. They managed to avoid coming together for the time being. This is going to be a super intense finish if they continue like they are. When they cross the line next, we will have 6 laps to go at Daytona. And it is neck and neck for the lead of the race between Neil Quick and Brian McCann. What can Aaron Smith do here to try and get a win? Currently sits in 3rd. He'll be rounding Brian McCann up for 2nd if he can. But the side draft is working really well for the number 3 down the front stretch. assuming the race stays green, if McCann wants to win from here, he has to make sure that he's alongside Quick coming out of the final corner. And he can use the ramp off the banking. A tiny bit of extra speed coming across the line. Either way, this is turning out to be the lead up to a very close finish.
Yeah, we're coming to 5 to go here. And down to 10 cars on the lead lap, probably close to down, really. And I gotta say, my money right now is on Brian McCann, given his track position.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. But Aaron Smith can give Quick a big push down the back stretch on the final lap. They could potentially get the momentum they need to clear McCann before they go onto the white flag, onto the checkered flag. David Trumbley still in 7th now, and oh, goodness, when they come into the turns, you can see just how loose some of these cars are getting. It's so hard to pick your line when you've got cars blocking your vision of the track ahead. Really, it's all down to following the yellow line, trying to pick your position from that. And sometimes the turbulence cannot work in your favor. Slight bump there for David Trumbley. Trying to push Chris Mefford forward. Neil Quick ahead of Brian McCann now, coming out of the final corner, and a car's length clear of him just about. Oh, that was a little bit of a trip down to the bottom there for Jamie Abel, 20th. No one else involved in that, though.
McCann almost looks like he's losing contact with the rest of the field behind him, and it's allowing that inside line to get a little bit further ahead.
Yeah, well, that's what we talked about before, isn't it? If you're leading a row of cars, you got to rely on the drivers behind you to stay up close and give you that push, but it's just not happening for Brian McCann right now. And Neil Quick is clear of him coming out of the final corner, but again, the ramping off the banking is working in the favor of the number 3 as we have 2 laps to go here. Hopefully not too many problems with this lap traffic here. Donnie Lyons and Hunter Clark, they stay high. And they allow everyone through without much incident. Oh, there was almost a hint of them fanning out there as into the wall gets Jesse King. And he is dropped all the way to the back of that train. Big shame there for King. It's all gone wrong for him with just a few miles of racing to go. Now, what can the McCanns do from here? This is going to be a difficult one. The push is on, though. The number 33 pushes the number 3, and oh, no! Back onto the circuit. The caution is not going to come out because that happened just as the white flag flew. Chris Mefford has been taken out of contention for the win here. And now it's all on. Brian and Kevin McCann. Can they pass Neil Quick round the outside? The push is on. And they have Mike Koch for company. Can Koch get a podium out of this? Final lap at Daytona.
You gotta think Brian McCann's having Fontana flashbacks right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is, but oh, have a look at that. The mid-corner, it works out well for Aaron Smith and Neil Quick. It's the run to the start-finish line now, just the tri-oval to come, and it looks like it's going to be Neil Quick who gets it. Across the line they come. Neil Quick wins round 10 of the IROC Challenge Series. Aaron Smith comes home in 2nd, and Brian McCann holds on for 3rd. Good to see that we got a finish under green flag conditions, and we didn't get a green-white checkered as well.
Yeah,
Well,
that was a great finish there, Reese, and I'm glad we were able to get it in under the original race distance.
indeed. I'm happy with that too. Well, the celebrations will begin very shortly for Neil Quick. We're going to step aside briefly here on GSRC, and when we come back, we'll have our official race results and interviews with our top three.
Spartan Transportation and Spartan Logistic Management is your one source for all your shipping needs. 53-foot dry van shipments, auto transport shipments, full-service in-house brokerage, drop lot facilities, just-in-time deliveries to all auto manufacturers, facilities in St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, and Indianapolis, Indiana. Spartan Logistics LLC, proud sponsor of the IROC series, Kyle Steffens UMP Modified and Silver Crown Driver, and Gordy Gundaker, World of Outlaws late model. Visit us at spartan-logistics.net or find us on Facebook.
Well, great finish there at Daytona for round 10 of the IROC Challenge Series. The regular season is over now, and we will move into the playoffs with Neil Quick taking victory over Aaron Smith and Brian McCann. Mike Koch holds on for fourth. Great run from the double O there, with Kevin McCann coming home in fifth. Jeff Napier, well, staying out and making sure that he was in the lead coming into the second stage certainly helped him out there, with David Trumbley and Jesse King coming home 7th and 8th. Chris Mefford comes home in 9th after an issue on the final lap, and Chris Wally, our series admin, will round out the top 10.
And with that, that ends our drivers on the lead lap. Cook Quick, first car 1 lap down, only car 1 lap down, and 11th over Hunter Clark. James Kaufman, Matthew Kopp, Brandon LeClaire, Brandon Mefford, all 1 lap down. Kyle Pendergraft, 3 laps down in 17th. Donnie Lyons, 4 laps down. Dakota Clark, 6th. And Jamie Abril, 8 laps down in 20th.
Indeed, and then we start moving into the drivers that really had terrible luck here. Brian Kaufman retiring, as was Tim Schofield, David Brown, Joshua Funkhauser, Brian Reek, and Mike Harper, with Curtis Rogers not taking the race start and not taking part in any sessions tonight. Well, now we move through into our interviews here. The first driver we're going to have a chat to is Aaron Smith. Really awesome to see that, Smith, you come home with another podium on the board, and all things are looking as they are. It looks like the regular season championship is yours.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, but I wasn't expecting the race to go that well after I got wrecked out in lap 10. Fortunately, we had that fast repair, and we were able to pick up the pieces. And had a little bit of trouble there at the beginning of the second stage. Got a black flag and had to serve a pass-through, but that run to the end there was awesome. I'm glad Neil can get him one this season.
We move through into the playoff stage of the season now after we do the All-Star race at Five Flags Speedway. So I suppose now it is a focus on results for you and results only.
Most certainly. We don't have to worry about the winner's penalty nearly as much anymore. I can go ahead and win the first race of each of these rounds and be fine for the end of the playoffs. But got a good group of tracks coming up. Hopefully we'll be able to put on a pretty good show there next time around.
Yeah, we certainly hope so too. Well, big congratulations to you, Aaron, for another podium on the board and regular season lead there. Who do you have to thank for making it happen tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all the folks at the IROC series for putting on a solid show every week. We had a couple of rough races these past couple weeks, but we were able to make a pretty good one this time around. But I'd like to thank all of y'all at GSRC for putting this show on, and all the folks for watching. Looking forward to getting back at it wherever we are. Oh, it's Five Flags next week, right?
Yep, indeed. Five Flags Speedway next round, and hopefully we'll be able to have a chat to you then, Mr. Aaron Smith. Thanks for joining us. And we'll move quickly on to Neil Quick, who in the number 2 was an absolute star here tonight. That is a win on the board for you there at Daytona, Neil, and it must feel good.
Man, guys, that is awesome. I'm so pumped over the win, but it's as much as mine as the 70 cars, man. I wouldn't be there without the great push there at the end and us linking up and staying close and keeping the outside line from getting around us.
Yeah, that's a big element of racing at super speedways and especially at Daytona as well. You're racing against drivers, of course, but you do have to work together up until the final lap. So cooperation is such a big element of racing at places like this.
Yeah, the biggest thing with these, and I know Aaron was giving me a great shove, and he gave me such a great shove. We both almost get out there, and I had to kind of drag the brake to stay close to him, and was almost afraid of him popping out to that outside line. So trying to keep him in check and take the great push, and a lot of strategy there the last 10 laps, but great race and a good win for myself because I'm gonna tell you, usually I'm about 25th at Daytona.
Well, this is a great reversal of fortunes here for you, Neil. Five Flags Speedway comes up next for the All-Star race, and I am completely unfamiliar with that place. Can you tell me anything about it?
Yeah, it's actually a great little bull ring of a short track. I've run super lates there a lot and some truck stuff there, but really looking forward to that All-Star race. It should be a great show, and really kind of excited to go into that, especially coming off the win here.
Absolutely. Well, big congratulations again to you, Neil. Who do you have to thank for your victory tonight?
You guys doing the broadcast, doing a great job. Chris, Kyle, Brian, Rick, all the guys that admin the league and sponsors, Spartan, R&R Racewear, 5-Star, all the guys that make this happen. And, of course, the family allowed me the time to continue to do it.
Of course. Well, Neil Quick, we'll leave you to celebrate your Daytona victory here. And finally, a last driver interview of the night, Chris Phoebe is going to have a chat to third-place finisher Brian McCann.
Well, Brian, a little bit of a change of fortune for you in these super speedway races this time. Earlier in the year, you were dominant, and this time you had to come from behind. Tell us about the race.
Of course, I had to start in the back because of the winner's penalty at the beginning of a race. So we was just going to ride around and try to pull a pit strategy to win stage 1, but that didn't really work out too well for us. I don't remember when my engine blew, stage 1 or stage 2, but when the water temp clicks over to red on the gauge, I think it's like 274 or something. I don't know the exact temp, but when it clicked red, right after that, it blew up, and I've never seen that happen before. I knew it was possible, but usually you can kind of go into the red a little bit and be all right. But it just blew up on me right in the middle of the turn. So I hate that for anybody that was behind me and got messed up. But that put me a lap down, and I had to fight the whole time to get back on the lead lap. And I finally did stage 3 for the final, but I had to start in the back. So I was like, what do we do here? And Kevin was back there with me. And we were looking, and we got to talking, and I was like, you want to go up the middle? And he's like, yeah. So he's in front of me. He's going to try it first, but he got pinched in or something. And I had a heck of a run. So I just went straight up the middle, and I think I got to the front in 1 or 2 laps there. My heart was racing, man. That was crazy.
Now, with your brother behind you there on that last lap, you weren't having any flashbacks from Fontana, were you?
Yes. On the last lap, I told him, give it all you got. And so he wasn't going to check up. So whatever happened. So I was cool with it. But I think we only had 2 cars on the outside line and 3 cars on the bottom side. And you got to have 3 cars to be able to draft efficiently. So that was a good win for Neil there. I was glad he can get that big push from Aaron. So, those 2, that was an amazing run they had.
Now, closing out the regular season here today, I'm sure you got a lot of people you want to thank.
Yeah, I'd like to thank my wife, my family, all those sponsors that helped put this show on, all the race admins, Chris Wally, Kyle, Brian, Rick. Hope I don't forget anybody. You guys for doing the broadcast. Everybody watching tonight, man. Just thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you.
All right, that's third place finisher Brian McCann. Back to you, Reese.
Indeed. Wow, what a race that was, and what a way to close out the regular season here in the IROC Challenge Series. Before we go, we'd like to give a shout out to the organizations that both support the series and that the series supports. Of course, Zoe's Place, helping out child advocacy in the United States, as well as R&R Racewear. We'd also like to give a shout out to Evidence-Based Mummy, and the Lucky Finn Project, of course, highlighting limb difference and educating people on it in America. Also, 5-Star Graphics and the Loud Pedal TV squads. Thanks very much for your support of this series. And a big thanks to Sim Coaches as well, and series organizer Chris Wally for putting all of this on. Also, make sure to check out IROC Series on Facebook. They have a podcast, The Hot Dog Stand, which is a really awesome listen. Make sure that you check that one out. Thanks to the team today, Chris, Joe, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, website, and merchandise store listed on the screen. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Of course, the next race is going to be the All-Star Race at Five Flags Speedway. That's happening on October 20. Make sure that you tune in for that one, and be sure to check out our other broadcasts listed here. Grand Prix Legends is going to be next on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.